Oh, fucking Jesus fucking Christ.
I can't even start the intro here because you are cursing the Lord's name right now. Welcome to the Max Ordinate podcast. What's up, Jeph?
What's up, Tyler?
Sorry, people don't know that we probably talked 30 minutes before this episode starts. And there's things that, I could put the bloopers online. And it's not that we're saying things that like the public can't hear. It's that I don't know if I want people to realize how dumb we really are.
I
We're
get
like,
chastised for my cursing.
for your cursing, yes, and you're over here giving me props on information that I know nothing about, which we're going to discuss.
I just assumed you were the guy leading this. What words am I trying to use here?
So the context.
I thought you were the one looking for the information.
Hey,
I was
we
asking
want to put a repeater on top of the mountain, so
yes,
we can have radio communications throughout the entire mountain area. And this has been
a
goal of mine. And you asked. Go ahead. What was your question?
So I was looking for a repeater because I use both GMRS and ham. And yes. I said, hey, Tyler, do you want a GMRS or a ham repeater up on the hill? Because I'm looking at building one. I found some cool plans for an ammo can repeater. And you said, I don't know.
I don't know because...
And I just assumed you did.
This maybe will roll into another subject that I was kind of hoping we get to today. There's so many things out there that you can learn, Jeph. And you were literally just telling me, like, you think you want to get into climbing. And I had been thinking about this subject for a while, which is, what are the things that you value or you feel are essential to learn as a person? So when you're sitting here saying like ham or GMRS, I'm like, I don't know. Like, you just give me the radio and tell me which button to push when I need to talk. Like, that's my understanding of it right now. It doesn't mean that I can't learn, right? Now I know, and this is a whole nother ball of wax, which is, did I learn radios and communication in the Marine Corps? I absolutely did. I know HF, I know VHF, I know UHF, but I know those radios and I know how to build antennas for those radios enough to communicate with the unit and to save our lives if we get into trouble, right? Outside of that, it is, frequency modulation and amp modulation, like all of that stuff is just like...
And you still, but the thing is, whoa, oh, you put the hands up. That made you zoom in.
Wait, how do I get it? I
think, hold on. No, I think you have to like do this or this.
Oh, no. Go back.
Okay.
It doesn't want to follow directions the other way. So anyways, yes, continue.
No, but you know more than me about... The only reason I even know mildly about radios is because one of my guys is a big kind of GMRS nerd, and we kind of learned together off and on. And so I put a ham and a GMRS in my truck, and I just been learning as much as I can about repeaters. And for me, I'm intrigued by being able to not just hit repeaters, but I'm intrigued by being able to like bounce off the stratosphere to be able to bounce it on the ionosphere to reach somebody in freaking Japan or something. I think that's just nuts. I don't know about it. I just enjoy reading and learning about it. So for the past week, I've just been...
That's more of your HF
YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's like your HF comms. Yes. And the angle that you are sending that signal and how it's going to bounce. I mean, because if you get the wrong bounce, you could bounce over your target.
So here's the thing. Right now, there's radio nerds that are just cringing at us
talking
about this.
So
like for like...
Go ahead.
What's that?
I said, outside of the repeater and us telling the world that we really have no idea how to use the radios, but we're interested. We just We don't know, right? And what we do know is probably just the tip, you know? So obviously there's some learning to do there. I want to learn. The question is, will I? I guess it depends, right? Because anytime that you want to learn something or you want to get into it, then you have to dedicate time to it. And you can't just dedicate like, hey, I'm going to go learn this. And once you read a book, like that's not enough. You have to do more. You have to practice. You have to, you have to do things to ingrain this into your brain. And I just don't know if I have the time or the oomph right now to apply myself to learning radios. So,
well, and that's what that's what, when we first started talking, I said, hey, I kind of want to learn how to climb.
yeah.
But I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, not because I don't want to, because I know I don't have the time, because I still have all these other things I'm still trying to either master or learn or whatever. But I want to be able to climb proficiently enough to be able to climb with you when you come out here, right? And or when you're back here full time, we can go, we can go climb and screw around and me not necessarily go out to die. So when we're learning things, we sort of I sort of have to figure out, okay, I want to do that. How much time am I willing to dedicate to learn to do that? And am I willing to dedicate do I want to do it enough to where if I don't dedicate enough time to it, I'm just going to kind of be okay at it? Is that something I'm willing to? Am I okay with just being just okay with something, which for most cases I'm not, and that's sort of a problem I have with a lot of the hobbies I have or the skills that I have is it's a balance between going 110% in on something and letting it consume you till you, I don't want to say master it, because you can't master anything, but it's hard to just kind of limp into a hobby, right? Like people like me and you go all in on stuff, and then before we know it, we're like, okay, well, crap, what's the next thing now?
Yeah. I mean, normally I have my climbing stuff up here behind me, but I got my bags packed. I'm going to go try and do a climb around this afternoon. So normally you'd see the rabbit hole behind me, which is pretty vast, but I think there's layers to everything where you look at climbing and, Jeph, you're like, I want to get into it so we can go and do some cool shit, see some cool things, and we can climb together while you're here. So at what level do you need to learn, right? Because there is learning to climb, and then there is learning all of the other shit, like how many friggin' knots are there out there? How many mountaineering knots, so I think there's levels to it, and I think that a person can be a really good climber and they could learn the basics in terms of ropes and knot work and stuff like that to allow them to do an ascent or something like that, or descend down a mountain with rappelling, but they don't have to know everything, right? And I am far from learning everything, but man, I'm getting sucked in on some of that YouTube shit. Like, hey, here's this knot and there are 30 different ways to tie it, and you're like, oh dude, like, but it helps you get a deeper understanding of how that knot is put together so that you can tie it.
Yeah, I mean,
any other,
like for context, I mean, I used to rappel every once in a while. I used to rappel a lot with my stepdad, and we used to jump off buildings all the time when we were building them. So I've got a little bit of basic knowledge, but I would almost equate it to golf, right? A guy can learn how to golf just good enough to go to the range, have some basic golf skill set to go play with his buddies, right? He's probably not going to go golf by himself because he wants to, it's more of a social thing. I don't want to go climb by myself. I don't want the skill level to climb by myself. I just want to be able to climb with my buddies and not hold anybody up. Kind of the same thing.
So with all of these things, you got golf, you got climbing, and then let's throw rifle shooting in there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think there are definitely levels to it, right? And there are things that you should know, and then there are things where it's like if you personally want to learn some of these things, that's fine, but when you try to preach some of these things, you're just getting too deep. All right, so I guess like my example would be, You take your rifle, you learn the fundamentals. You learn the fundamentals from the prone position. You learn how to set your rifle up for yourself. You learn about your scope and how it operates in minutes and mils or whatever measurement that you have, right? And then you learn ballistics, internal, external ballistics, how the atmosphere, how all of the external factors will affect your bullet in flight. But then if you push beyond that level, right? If so, for example, I had you fucking ask chat bot or whatever that chat GPT, ask it some questions. And I also saw something online yesterday where a company was talking about high angle shooting. And they were like, hey, if you're shooting up or down, it's going to change your muzzle velocity. And I'm looking at it like, it's not going to, saying that piece of information right there is going to, there's going to be some shooters out there who read that and they take that for gospel. And they say, oh, if I'm shooting up, my muzzle velocity is going to be lower than if I'm shooting down. Now, is that statement true? Yes. But is it true enough to where it's going to have an effect that you need to compensate for? No. Right? So there is a point where, like, if you're not going to get deep into it and actually learn all the stuff, then there's certain things that you should probably just ignore, right? You shouldn't focus on them. Like, and when I say, Jeph, like how much velocity are you going to lose, you're talking like you're aiming up at 35-degree angle. You're going to gain, oh, this fucking camera is following me again. But you're aiming up at a 35-degree angle. You're going to lose 10 feet per second from your horizontal. If you're aiming down at 35-degree angle, you're going to lose, or you're going to gain 10 feet per second, right? So is 10 feet per second enough to have an effect on you? I mean, some of your ammo won't even hold that tight of a tolerance.
Yeah, and that's not even the equation or the variable you need to worry about with high angle shooting.
Exactly. Right. So sometimes I feel like there'll be information that's put out there that people will get wrapped around that, if you go to a fucking competition and you see dudes out there spinning their kestrels like clockwork, dude, every 15 minutes, the homie's fucking spinning his kestrel around, like the density altitude changed by 200 feet. And it's like, who fucking cares? It doesn't have an effect. Like, we're not, uh-oh, somebody froze. Jeph. Technical difficulties. I don't know whose end it is on. Oh, Jeph. Jeph, come back to me, Jeph. And we will be right back once we figure out these technical difficulties.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
What happened?
I was about to call you.
Oh my gosh. So I'll cut that part out. Don't worry about that.
That's okay.
I am gonna keep
so it could be
in there.
It could be on my end, to be fair.
It's not on my end. I am in the technology center of the universe right now. Call me a liar.
All right. Okay. Continue. Where were we?
I'm in Asia.
Yeah,
this is the technology center.
I'm in beautiful Orange County, California, and you know what I can't get?
Electricity?
Decent internet service. No, decent internet service.
Well,
it's horrible.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you there, man. I mean, you guys have all kinds of problems. People are buying electric cars and now they're telling you not to charge them. So
yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
Well, so anyhow, I think the point is that I want to learn. I'm willing to. I know what my limitations are with what I want to learn, but I do know that for me, continually learning, that whole the journey is greater than the destination thing is really important for me. I got a neon sign around here somewhere that's going to go up in the golf studio when it's done, and it really is like I take as much joy of learning the things and figuring the things out and educating myself on things which is why I have no desire to build a repeater other than maybe put one up on the hill. But I've spent the last week just watching videos about repeaters because it makes me more knowledgeable in just my radio usage and in the parts that I am going to take away from it.
Yeah.
So
To
yeah, I know
answer,
what I'm willing to put in, and I'm not willing to dedicate my life to climbing, but I still want to go climbing with a buddy.
so to answer you and everybody else's question, one, I would have to look into it. I'd have to research it. Ham versus GMRS. I believe with ham, you're technically supposed to have like a dedicated call sign or a handle.
So you have to have a license for ham. Yes, it's a proctored test. There's 3 levels. There's technical, there's general, and then there's amateur extra, or I think maybe it's technical extra or something like that. GMRS, you have to have a license, but there's no test. You just buy it from the FCC. It's $35 for 10 years, and that license is good for your entire family. So
sounds like we're going CB radio.
Yeah, I mean, GMRS is really, really simple, and it covers. It's basically FRS. It's basically just a 2-way radio. It covers the FRS 2-way radio spectrum.
Right now?
Family radio service or general mobile radio service. But yeah, I think for us, GMRS is the way to go on the hill. I just didn't know if you had already had a type of radio that you were going to use, or if you were just going by what Mike's going to tell you to use.
Yeah, no idea. I usually refer to Mike for all of those specific questions. If anybody's wondering, like, why do we need a repeater? Well, we have a land navigation course that is pretty vast. And for that land navigation course, we would need the ability to reach over some of these mountains so that we could communicate with students if they get lost or hurt or anything like that. So let's roll that into that previous question that I had, Jeph, which is, what are some of the skill sets that you value as a person in the event that shit hits the fan, right? Like, and again, there's so many things that you could learn out there. So like, for example, hand-to-hand combat or pistol, firearms, carbine, like close range stuff, clearing a house or long range sniper stuff, survival, starting fires, building shelters, procuring food. I mean, would learning electrical be something, like a kid that was on the fire line with us yesterday during our 50 cal shoot? We started talking about batteries, like Tesla, uses lithium cobalt, not lithium ion. And I'm like, I don't know what any of that shit means. And he's like, oh, I've been playing around with batteries. And I'm like, you lost me after we said Tesla, right? Like, the most I know about Tesla is their stock price. That's it. So what are some of the skills that you feel like if things get weird and the power shuts off at your house, and the last time there was a blackout in Southern California and it only lasted 8 hours, there were people fighting over gasoline, shit went crazy. So
I know. And so I have for me, I have a couple scenarios in my head. Like, what's the shit hit the fan, right? Is it we lose power for 8 days and we have to hunker down, or is it a full-on government takeover and we need to beat feet, right? I'm more of the, we lose the power grid and we lose water and maybe we lose just general, resources, and that for me is the most likely.
Let's go with a less conspiracy theorist for right now, and let's just say that the sun right now is in it's in one of its cycles, and it's spewing all kinds of shit out into space and solar storms. So let's say that we just get this massive, coronal ejection from the sun. It hits the earth and it takes out the power grid. And there's some articles out there that you read that say that, it could take years for the power grid to come back if it is destroyed in such a way like that. So let's go with that. There's no government attack. There's no foreign country invading us, anything like that. You're just dealing with the people around you, and none of you have the ability to get electricity. And that affects fucking everything, right? You can't fuel out of a gas pump without electricity these days. So what do you think the skill sets to just keep you and your family going are going to be required for that?
So one of the things that we've been working on the last year is, I want to say homesteading because we're in, the middle of the city, but we've been really focusing on becoming self-sufficient on the things that we can control. So communications, I've got in my safe, I've got a Faraday bag, which normally my night vision actually stays in when it's not on my desk. Key electronics, which will be my shortwave radio with sideband, just to be able to listen. I've got a I think it's a Yosa or whatever ham radio that lives in the Faraday bag, and communications and being able to figure out how to communicate with people, outside of my neighborhood, I is sort of something I've really been trying to learn about. But other than that, I just value being able to plant seeds and grow food and keep clean water. Um, you'd be surprised at, everybody can keep a garden. It's not that hard, right? But what happens when you can't go to the garden center and go buy plants to plant? Well, what the hell are you going to do now? Because next year those are no good.
I was thinking it goes so deep in terms of like, I can grow my own food. Like I have a garden. I'm like, okay, cool. But do you know where you're going to get the next seeds from? Or, how long is it going to take to grow each one of these specific plants and vegetables? Like, do you have a time schedule? I think it goes way deeper than just I can grow my own food. Like if you're actually in a
so
scenario.
she's been really on this kick of, I let her handle that, right? She's really good at it. So she's been learning how to get seeds from the individual plants that we grow, use those seeds and germinate them to grow next year's crops or whatever it is. But she's just down a rabbit hole for that, which is something that something I value for, the being self-sufficient. And then, water storage, cleaning our own water, the ratios between, chlorine or bleach or whatever, the tablets and whatever we got to do to make our own clean water. We've got kind of a whole system together in what we would do between the pond and the water tank up on the hill. So in general, I don't say mechanical skills, but like general electrical, say know-how, being able to read a book. You don't have to know how to do it, but you kind of need some books around to figure stuff out. Because if you lose power, maybe you have to make a solar. You got to make a solar setup, right? If you don't know how to do it, you could have all the stuff there that you need, but you're gonna be without power.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. I think it would be a crazy. I think it'd be crazy for how long you think it would take for things to settle down. Let's say it's a 3-year time period where the power grid is down. Like you're not being attacked, but at this point forward, there is no power in the United States. How long until things settle down and people stop murdering each other for their belongings until people get a grip on what's happening? Do all the stupid people have to die first?
Yeah, I mean, we used to work scenarios when I was living in Ventura County, and like me and my father figure, we used to talk about this all the time. Like we would look at timelines of if the power grid goes down, what's the timeline to reach our neighborhood, right? This nice little town in Ojai. How long until the people from LA reach Ventura, the people from Ventura go up the hill? Like what's the timeline look at before we're in firefights?
Yeah.
And then once that's over and done with, how long until it goes back to normal? Fuck it. I have no idea. I just know I think it would take, with no communication of when things are going to be restored.
Yeah.
2 weeks before people start murdering each other.
Okay. Tops. I think it would be sooner than that. I mean, I think
that's you'd be looking
at
a little bit of faith in humanity.
Yeah. You watch some of the movies out there. Like one of the movies I remember watching is like San Andreas, and there's
Mhm.
this massive earthquake in California in the movie, and it's got the rock and all that shit. And the earthquake just happened like 5 hours ago, and he's in a
Yeah.
helicopter, he's flying, and they're in Bakersfield, and people are raiding Best Buy, in the movie, like getting big screen TVs and shit. Where would be the first place that you go?
Oh shit.
If
Well,
you have it, like power goes out and
probably.
you're looking around like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then, like, it starts to spread that the power's out and we don't know when it's coming back, right? And you're like, okay, here's where I'm deficient. Where are you going? You going to Home Depot? You going to the ammo store to pick up bullets? Like,
No, because you could always use more ammo and more food on stuff, but I've got, like, for the family, I probably got 6, 8 months worth of food in the attic. I've got enough ammo to last me a while. So I'm going to Ace Hardware because it's a smaller hardware store. They got a lot of stuff I could just, maybe I don't have enough rope, enough fertilizers, enough soils, just things like that. I'm thinking of what do I need to do to hunker down.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't know, maybe the fucking tire shop because I'm gonna need to put some tires in the back of my truck to because those will only last me for a couple years. I don't know,
That's a good
but
question.
probably Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware. Okay. I
Yeah,
can't
and
I can't even
maybe
think.
maybe the gas station.
I'd go to Delta Airlines. Like, get me a flight out of this bitch. I don't know. Like, I'd probably be stuck
Yeah,
here.
I mean,
I have to get my kayak and just see you in a few months.
oh yeah, so I mean, you'd be screwed. You would you'd be stuck on an island in the middle of nowhere for till flights are running again.
Or, or hear me out. I could be here sending you a podcast invite on Tuesday. Like, why the fuck isn't this dude picking up? Because I have electricity and you don't.
We don't. And you have no communication to the outside world.
Exactly. I have no idea what's going on. I just know that I can't get a hold of anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
Strange.
I think about all the end of day scenarios, and then I'll be sitting there in bed in the middle of the night, and I'm like, I can't waste any more energy on this. I'm just gonna pretend everything's gonna always be normal, and I'll just go about watching YouTube again.
I mean, it all goes back to that conversation of like, I don't think anybody could be, well, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there could be a couple people, but it would be very difficult at this stage in life to say these are all the skills I need to learn if I'm going to survive in the event of a catastrophe, right? Not saying that you can't, but a lot of the times, people start learning from a young age. Like, you learn how to hunt, then you learn how to grow your own food, and then you learn how to do this or do that. Jeph, did I lose you again?
You
You are.
did.
Oh my
Nope,
gosh.
there you are.
There. Okay. So
I got you. I heard the thing though.
like over your entire life, you would learn skills that help you, right? Hunting,
Mhm.
fishing, like, survival stuff. And then, as a kid in high school, you go to a trade school and you learn, construction and some electrical. And then, you get another career and then you go to the military and then you learn some skills there, right? So there are people who can be well rounded, but I'd say for the vast majority, like, you might be in this spot right now where you don't have a lot of these skills. So
Yeah. So
how do you,
there's 2 points that. So first, I would say that anybody listening to us were the last people to get advice from on prepping, right? Like
oh,
neither one of us are
100%.
experts in
No,
on
no.
subject. I One of my favorite podcasts is Casual Preppers. It's an amazing podcast that I listen to on Spotify. I'm sure on everything else, but one of the things that they press a lot is medical training, basic emergency medical training, which me I don't I let everything expire. So at one time I was an EMT. So I have basic medical training. We did a lot of like emergency tactical, medical training at the PD. So I've got enough to where I feel I could proficiently keep me and the family alive in an emergency. And so I've always pressed that too as being super, super important. And I spend time with the kids, I spend time with the wife, and we do, not as often as we should, but we also do basic like medical training, family type stuff that I try to teach that to them. Going back to what you were saying though, that you spend your whole life learning like skill sets and learning a lot of different things that will be relevant. People laugh at me all the time for having so many jobs for so many years, but um, it, I think the saying goes, it's jack of all trades, master of none. But the full saying is jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than a master of one is really phenomenal, because you should learn all that shit. You should learn as much as you can and not get, again, pigeonholed into one simple skill, which is what, I said, I think last week, where you should have a ton of hobbies and a ton of skills and learn as many things as you can while you're here on this earth.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm in 100%. I think that as much as I know, there's still so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
Where do you think, okay, I'm gonna name some lists here. I'm gonna think to myself like what would be the things that would be needed, and you can just answer yes or no on whether you have the capability to sufficiently support that. All right. So
Okay. Currently.
currently, hunting.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Water purification,
Yes. Both mechanical and chemical.
electrical wiring,
The skill to do it, yes.
electrical storage,
No.
mm, automotive repair.
Yes.
Okay. Um, let's see. You have a newborn baby, so
That's a whole nother set of
basic infant care when you don't have the aid of a doctor, like herbal medicine, home remedies, like, and I'm not
so
talking like your
no
baby
from
breaks his fucking arm, but I mean, maybe it does. What are you gonna do?
yeah, I mean, I would say no for me. That's baby specific. I would say yes for my wife.
Okay. Okay. Um, gardening, like the ins and outs of like, this is the cycle that we grow. We're going to plant
Nope.
this time. We're going to plant this next time, and the soil is going to lose this much nitrogen with this plant, so then we'll have to move to this plant. Like,
No, not even a little bit. That's her expertise.
okay, oh man, let
But
me think.
as a family, yes, we have that as a family, but nowhere near the level we should.
Okay, how about navigation without the
Mm.
electronics?
Ooh. I would say if we're talking just basic highways and not off outside the city, I would say yes.
Okay.
I still have Thomas guides and maps I still have them in my truck in my the rear driver's seat pouch flap thing. Um, Outside of that, no, I'm not. You know, land nav is not my forte at all. I can follow a compass. I can get a heading and stay on that heading, but not like you can.
How about when you say survival, there's so much that goes into survival. So let me break survival down into a few different aspects. Fire starting.
Oh yeah.
So there's levels to that, right? So I got a lighter, bam, I can start a
Mm-hmm.
fire. I have a magnesium block and a piece of flint, boom, I can start a fire. But when those are no longer available, then what? And
For me, bow and string has always been or bow and spindle, or whatever you call it, has been my go-to. I know there's other methods, but that's one I've always kind of took to if I'm like building a fire like primitively.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's a good one. We were at a climbing site this past weekend, and I had made a bet with one of the friends that came out. It's like, it's cold. I bet you can't start a fire with nothing. And they're sitting there trying. They're like rubbing their hands together, and I'm just kind of giggling over there. And then they got a piece of wood, and they're trying to like do the Tom Hanks Castaway by rubbing it on there.
Uh-huh.
This goes on for like an hour, and I'd already done like 2 climbs, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, it's not going to happen. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is such a complicated deal, right? Your technique is not there. You're not getting the friction that you need. You're not getting the heat that you need. The wood's not even turning brown. Like, that's how little heat you are fucking making right now. And on top of that, you can't just take any piece of wood and do this, right? Your spindle
Bingo.
has got to be a different, density than your actual fire starting wood. Like, there's a lot that goes into this. And, you think
if you don't know,
yeah,
you'll do it forever.
You're going to watch Tom Hanks movie and say, I can do that. Bullshit. Like, so you get the fire starting side. How about the hunting side? Now, obviously you have a gun, right? So you can take the gun, you can go out, you can hunt, but now you don't have the gun. You have you have some lashing cord, and you have a knife, and you have a stick. Do you think you could spear hunt?
I would say yes, only because the areas that I would typically hunt. So I'm not like all my hunting, like all my deer hunting has all been in California, right? Where we don't have, it's a lot of spot and stock, but we have a lot of dense trees. So do I feel like I could lash up a spear and sit in a tree and wait? Yeah, because I would just go to where my normal hunting spots would be, and I kind of know them.
You might have to change up the animal that you're hunting.
Yeah.
It might be a lot easier to hunt hogs with a spear than it would be like a deer who's like always on the alert that he's about to be killed.
Yeah, but so that also goes back to knowing your local resources in your local area, right? Like somebody, I could probably take one of the most experienced hunters and one of the most well versed trophy hunters, sustenance hunter, whatever, in like say Texas, Wyoming, Missouri, or something. I could go drop them in the hills in Ojai. They'd spend years before they could kill something. It's just such a different type of hunting.
Yeah.
So there's no hogs in California short of once you get past Ventura County, really, and you start getting up into central. I mean, there's some, but we've got some small deer, we have some rabbits, small game, but for us, birds. I would say my best luck would be, hitting some fucking quail or chuckers with a spear more than anything.
Okay.
Just with my skill set.
How about snares? Rabbits are pretty prominent. You've got your little bushy-tailed guys, your cotton ball, but then you've also got jacks. And jacks don't taste very good, but you know what? If you're starving, you're going to make do.
Yeah.
But snares, traps, things like that, what's your level on those right now?
It's I would say it's just okay. It's probably been 10 years since I've set a trap. I used to trap. I had my trapper's license forever. I used to sell furs for years when I was younger, but it's been probably 10, 15 years. And I also never snared. I never used wire traps or conibears. Everything I did was cage traps. Okay. So I learned how to live trap everything that I took to market, and it was just a different type of trapping. So I could make a set. I could definitely run a dirt set all day long if I needed to, but I definitely need some tuning up. I'll tell you that much.
Fishing.
I would probably have better luck trapping a coyote or a bobcat or a raccoon than I would a rabbit.
I mean, I've seen some dudes pull off some pretty wicked snares, but then at the same time, I'm like, I've tried some snares and I ain't catch a damn thing. So
yeah,
I mean, there's an art to it, and it's just another one of those skills where it's like, you might think you know it just because you read a book or you practice it once or something like that, but doing it's completely different.
Oh,
Fishing.
definitely.
So you've got
fishing,
like fishing
yeah.
pole, then you've got like I have this survival fishing kit, and then you've got do to cast nets out. You know, there's ways to read the river and where you can trap fish, like, you know, crabbing.
So I mean, again, as you know, like I grew up fishing, I grew up working fishing boats, and my hobbies have always been hunting and fishing. So I would say fishing would be kind of an easy one for me. I used to make flies, and I did a lot of fly fishing, so that would be, you know, incredibly difficult without, you know, the tools to tie them. But you know, as far as just getting some string and making your own hooks and ties and stuff, I could do it. I would think my level would be sufficient to stay alive, I guess.
So let me take you back about 13, 12 years, right? Somewhere around there. I think that's the right amount of time. Maybe it's more than that. Shit, I'm getting old, dude.
You're getting old, dude.
15 years, 15 years, 2007. And we're on a tiny little string of islands called the Maldives, however you want to say it. I always say Maldives. I think it's just the American way of messing everything up. But we're on this island, and me and a bunch of the other Marines, we want to go spearfishing. And so we got this broomstick, and we basically fashion a way to put a nail on the end of it. We're like, we're going to go spearfish. So we go out there. Oh, Jeph, did you freeze again? You froze in the most weird way, dude. You look so hot. I'm not editing this part out. I'm leaving this up on the screen. Oh, there you are. Okay. So we got this broomstick with this nail fashioned to the end of it, right? And we're out there walking in like knee to thigh deep water, and we see a fish, and like we stab it, and the PETA people are probably going to be like so pissed off right now, but we stab a fish, and then we go to pull it out, and like the nail comes out of the fish, and this fish swims off with a fucking hole in it now. And we're hungry. The fish has got a hole in it, and nobody's happy right now. So we're probably out there for 4 hours trying to spearfish, and we're not able to catch anything. Like it's just not working. We're stabbing a bunch of shit, but we're not catching anything. So we go back onto the shore, and granted, we're probably like 24 years old, maximum. We're a bunch of young Marines, and we go back to the shore, and the locals see us, and they come over, and there's a language barrier there, but clearly they recognize that we suck, right? They see that our method is not doing what it's supposed to do. So they show us what a spear should look like. And it's like 3 prongs in different directions. And we're like, oh shit. So now we're out there spearing fish, and it's a whole lot easier than what we were trying to do, So I just, when I think of fishing, I try to remember that it doesn't have to just be, let me throw my fishing rod and try to catch some fish in a freshwater lake or off the pier.
I'll tell you a funny spear fishing story. So it's probably around the same timeline. It's probably 2006, 2007. And it's me and 2 of my buddies, and we're on a little 17-foot center console. We're just outside of we're at a Dana Point. We're like at the 209 bank, and we're doing what's called patty hopping. So we're just hauling ass, kind of open ocean, looking for tuna, yellowtail, dorado. And we're just, you find a little softball or volleyball size, piece of kelp, and you fish it, and nothing's there. You run, you go to the next one. So we go to this like mother lode, like kelp that we see in the middle of nowhere. Not a boat to be seen, absolute just flat, calm seas. And we throw in some bait, and we just get lit up, and there's just yellowtail and dorado everywhere. We're just on it, right? Oh, I got my Hawaiian sling, which is just on the end of it with a like, I'm just gonna jump in, and I'm gonna stick me a yellowtail.
Okay.
I put my fins on, they're hooked up. I jump in. As soon as I hit the water, this no less than 300-pound mako comes flying out of the water with a yellowtail in his mouth. I basically stand up on top of the water and run back to the boat. And it was probably 12, 13 years before I stepped back in the water again with a spear gun. And to this day, I've done like 2 shore uh free dives, and but I've never speared fished again. That it was like the last moment I ever tried to stick a fish with my spear gun.
There's definitely a form of fishing that I want to try, whether it's here or maybe in Hawaii, but it's the Hawaiian sling. Basically, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
spear gun, but it operates off of like a wrist band. And
Yeah. So that's what I dove in with most of the time was my Hawaiian sling, and it's just I've got 2 of them here, and I've got one with your normal like 3-prong tip, and then I
yeah,
have one with the more of a barbed tip on it.
yeah.
And they work great. They actually work good for like surf fishing too. If you're just walking around the surf, ankle deep water, just sticking stuff, little halibut's in the sand if you can find some.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to check it out. It's one thing that I'm interested in, but going back to your how prepared are you, right? It's just you can see how many different rabbit holes there are to go down
Oh yeah.
every one of these avenues. It's like, can I get electricity? Can I fix our vehicle? Can I take care of our baby? Can I grow food? Can I hunt? Can I clean what I hunt? There's a whole side to that. I mean, water procurement, and then how do you clean the water? People are under this myth of like, oh, the water's moving, it's safe. Let me tell you that the Helmand River in Afghanistan is a fast moving, deep river. And we had been stuck on the side of a mountain for a mission for 4 days. The mission went over a day longer than we had planned. We ran out of food, we ran out of water. So now our pickup site is on the edge of the river. So we patrol down, we get off of this mountain, and we're at the river. We hadn't had water in 12 hours. At this point, we're just drinking straight out of the fucking river because we are on the verge of death, right?
Yeah.
Now, the river's moving pretty fast. So we're about waist deep. We're not getting hit by the current or anything, waist deep. And, some of us are filling up like our Nalgene bottles and drinking that. And some of us, like myself, are just face first in this motherfucker, like trying to take everything. And every single one of us got dysentery from that shit.
Yeah, I bet.
So the running water is not a good method to go off of, saying that it's moving, it's fine. There's not going to be any viruses in there. Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, and imagine if you'd have been, you know, you're 4 days in, but let's say it goes 2 weeks too long and you're drinking out of that. Well, now you guys are all dead.
Yeah.
Every one of you.
So I mean, there's a lot when it comes to the survival piece. You've got mountaineering, you got alpinism, not just climbing, but being able to move over terrain. Like climbing in general is fun, but where does that apply? Well, if you and your family had to pick up and move to a new location, or, like worst case scenario, the city is not there anymore. The city's not livable. So now you have to displace to an area that you can claim as your own. And now you got to start looking at like, one, how do we get there? Are there natural resources around me that I can stay alive with? How are we going to build a shelter? How are we going to navigate there? How are we going to get over this terrain? I mean, dude, the possibilities are endless. And I'm not saying that anybody out there with a little bit of dedication can learn all of this stuff. It's a lot of shit. It's just kind of understanding your strengths and weaknesses. And I don't know. I think there'd be a lot of hard lessons learned if something like this ever did happen. Right? There'd be some.
Yeah. And I think that like becoming, I don't want to say becoming a prepper, but becoming more aware of where your weaknesses are and educating yourself on those things isn't so much about preparing for the end of days or the shit hits the fan scenario. I think it's more realizing where your weaknesses are as a person and taking steps to to fix that, right? And it may not necessarily be prepping or getting yourself prepared for those things. It may just be, I'm weak in this portion of the way I learn things, so I should do this. Or I'm weak in, you know, this type of communication skills with my wife, and I need to work on that. I think a lot of it's just self-reflecting and kind of taking inventory on your own bullshit. And for us, taking inventory is realizing what's important to us, which is preparing for those types of things. For others, it may be something completely different.
Yeah. The last thing on this topic, we got to move on, talk about some other stuff. But how many people you think, like, we have this plan, like, here's our if this happens, we are set up to sustain ourselves for, you know, let's say, Jeph, you and your family are set up to sustain, you know, under normal conditions. We're not talking like you need insulin and all that craziness. We're just talking like to have food, have water, and shelter, and like 6 months. You got 6 months worth of time, right? But what about before you get to the house? Let's say you are up in Northern California dealing with business, and you know, the girls are at school and Melissa's at home with the baby. The family is currently split up into 3 different locations. And what's the plan for everybody to get back together?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because probably 8 years ago, me and you met Dan. He went to one of the MOA classes, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And he was my old sniper instructor. Me, him, and Dave used to actually teach a class on basically getting back home, if you need to get back home, and what you need to carry with you, emergency preparedness from your vehicle, and how you get back home based on the distance, right? Do you got to walk? Do you have the right gear? Do you have the right pack? I won't go to Northern California anymore unless I'm in my truck for various reasons. I don't leave the city unless I have a certain bag and I got a certain amount of things packed, just for that, if I have to get back home.
Yeah.
Me leaving the house it's not a big deal, but I treat it as a big deal just for that. How do I get back home to my family? Because you remember when I took the train up to Washington and there was a fire on the tracks, and it was the first time I had been away from the baby, and well, since she was born. And I damn near panicked, thinking, oh, how am I going to get home now? And I went through this whole scenario of, I'm going to have to ditch my gun because I'm going to have to get on a plane. I'm going to have to rent a car, like all these fucking things. And I was only delayed like 3 hours. But
Yeah.
that's how, like, I prepared pretty heavy when I leave the house to get back to the house, because I don't take for granted that if I leave home, I'm going to just automatically come back home.
Yeah. I mean, so there's that side of it, right? So let's say you stretch this scenario further. You guys are split up, and the plan is for you to come back to home and then meet up as a family, assess situation, and then figure out where to go from there. But home is no longer an option. For whatever reason, it's not an option, and you don't know it. So you get back and you're like, where's my home? And all the people that are supposed to be in it. You know, like, what is plan B? And does everybody know what plan B is supposed to be? You know, like,
Yeah.
It's just
everybody has to have an emergency plan, and that does include what happens if home is no longer the viable option. And that has to be included in your plan. So we have a plan. If we're not here and home is no longer here and we have to meet somewhere, it's not like something we train all the time, but it's like, hey, you need to go to this place if you can't come here. Okay, that's plan B.
Yeah.
Should I have a plan C? Yeah, probably, but plan B is good enough for right now until we figure out what the fuck plan C is going to be. So yeah, it's funny you say that, because that is I'm saying it's my biggest fear, but that is something that almost nobody takes into account is, how do you get back home in an emergency? If your vehicle's disabled and you're 100 miles from home, go. And then when you get there, your home's not there anymore. That's not a spot you can get to.
Yeah.
Now what?
I mean, just navigating in general, like we already talked about, like when you don't have a phone, when you don't have satellite, when you don't have these luxuries that everybody uses anymore, do you know the major freeways? Do you know what direction that they go? Are you going to walk the freeway? You're going to take the roads? Like, do you know what areas to avoid? You know, like if you work in Long Beach and you live in Orange County, there's some distance there. It's not like, you know, it's not going to take you longer than a day to make that travel, but there's a lot of areas in there you might not want to go through. And at the same time, if you're not taking like the 405 or the 73 or some of these freeways that get you from point A to point B quickly, do you know how to get around? You know, like you got Coast Highway, but it's things like that, you know, and I'd be curious to see
how many times do you hear people talking about going somewhere and they're like, oh yeah, I got lost because I never come here during the day, so I didn't remember how to get here.
yeah.
Or I never travel here at night, so it's always during the day. Now imagine not even being in your car. Now imagine when's the last time you walked from one side of town to the next? Do all
Exactly.
the streets look the same? So yeah.
You know, I got that. Who was it that told? Oh, you know, I think it was Vanessa. Vanessa was like, she was telling me she's going to go out to the range. She's going to get some practice. Well, she got lost leaving the range. And I'm like listening to the story. I'm like, how you get lost leaving the range? She's like, I've never drove away from there in the dark. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, man. But man, we could go for days. I think we could revisit this conversation later as we think
Yeah, no, for
about
sure.
it. I just thought it'd be something interesting to talk about. But there is another subject I want to get onto here, and it's going to be about not just tripods, but the mounting solution for tripods. So, hog saddle, where you're clamping around the rifle versus a direct clip in, either pick rail or Arca. So it's really cool. I found a video. I believe it's from MDT. They always pop up at my feed. I think they're challenging me to see if I could find something they're doing wrong. But I split the video up into two different spots, because the way that they put the video together, they had a top video was a hog saddle, the bottom video was Arca rail. And
oh, I saw that one, and
did you
they
see
did a
it?
time shoot on it. Yeah, that was a good one.
So here
I
is
wish
the
they
hog
would.
saddle video.
Yeah.
You wish what?
No, I was gonna say I wish they would try to bribe us a little bit, because that freaking that bipod's expensive, and I just bought one.
All right, so here's the hog saddle video. I'm gonna press play. It's in the hog saddle. They got it clipped on. All right, so you see all that movement in there, Jeph?
Yeah, it's funny you're gonna say, because I almost sent this one to you because it was giving me a seizure.
Like there's so much movement in there. I'm just kind of dragging the cursor along the video, right? So you got a lot of movement and stability in there, but you also have a massive amount of recoil, and just you're not really maintaining that rifle very well. Yeah. Whereas you watch the Arca side, which I'm going to throw up right now, and I felt like it was important to split the videos up, because I tried watching them, you know, at the same time, and I had to watch the video like 8 times just to get a good view on both. So here's the Arca. Right now, this is just a direct clamp into the system, whereas the Hog Saddle is clamping around the rifle. This guy is really good. So he clamps it in, and instantly, Jeph, you can kind of see already the difference in stability.
Yeah.
Look at the recoil management.
No, and honestly, when I saw that, the first thing I did is I went back to look at the rifle to see if he would switched it out to like shoot like a rimfire or something, because the difference was so drastic. I was like, there's no way.
Exactly. So people think that I'm messing around when I say, like, don't go with any style of clamp because it's just not the way anymore, right? And people say, well, like, oh, for hunting and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but you could take less gear and less weight by just having a fixed point on your rifle and a direct mount on your tripod. You'd be saving weight, but you'd be gaining stability. And it just doesn't make sense anymore to go that route where you're clamping something around the rifle. Not to mention, depending on the system that you're running, if you clamp that bitch too tight, it might cause issues. I've seen gas guns that get clamped too tight and they affect how the barrel and upper receiver are clamped together, and causes problems with accuracy.
Yeah, so I kept my I don't have a Hog Saddle. I have the Kofjäger version of it, and I keep one of those heads just for if I'm shooting with somebody and they don't have a tripod set up, then I lend it out. But even on my hunting rifles, like my custom wood stocked ones, I hung on to an old Picatinny setup from Kofjäger. So if in if the time comes that I need to shoot those off of a tripod, I don't want a big, Arca rail on it, but I have one little one little section of Picatinny on there, so I can still lock in and clamp in securely to my the new tripod versus the clamp in style, the Kofjäger setup. So yeah, what we talked about last week holds true. Stacking those tolerances is a real thing. I mean, the fucking proof's on the pudding right there in that video.
It is 100%. Now, they're being nice in the video because they're like, oh, look, here's a Hog Saddle versus Arca rail, and here's the time difference. And I was thinking it was about 3 seconds per shot. There was a difference in, like, the Arca rail shot faster. The Hog Saddle took longer because of instability and all things considered. So you lost, I think, 6 seconds total or something like that. But they, again, being nice, they didn't say anything about the fact that everything about it looked just completely worse. Your stability on target, your recoil management, everything looked 2 to 3 times worse when you compared it to a direct connection. So
well, they're just nicer than we are. So
they are right. So if you compare those two videos, I would tell you flat out, like, look at the data that's right in front of you. Why would you go with a clamp style setup if you have the option to go with a direct connection where you are instantly improving your marksmanship skills, right? Or hiding your flaws, as we have talked about before, right? So thought it was a cool video. I am going to bust out a video of you and we can talk about
this me getting is this where I get roasted in the comments?
I think you got roasted in the comments a little bit. It was something that Falcor Defense posted. I'm trying to
yeah.
No. So Falcor Defense posted this thing and they said, here Jeff's out here getting after it or something like that. And there was one guy who commented, because he looks like an expert to me. I mean, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Like, we should hire him. Let's see. Here's the video. All right, here we go.
And for context, I posted up another video where I did roast myself, but it wasn't this one.
So, boom! There goes that $10 piece of brass. Shit.
Oh God, it's painful to watch.
Again, there's another one.
And again,
you're actually hitting the target too. It's crazy.
I know. Not according to that dude.
You hit the target again. Now, at this point, people don't know, but it's a small target and it's on a strap. So it is swinging. Every time you hit it, it's harder and harder and harder. Like, how many shots did we take before eventually it was just swinging so hard that you and I would miss? It's like you're shooting a mover.
I swung it up and over the holder, and you had to shoot it back down so we could see it.
Yeah. So the comment was, somebody said, I bet he missed, ha ha ha. And then like I think Jason commented, said, dude, you can hear the fucking target being hit. And then he's like, well, he's got his hand over the barrel. So let me explain. When I was watching you shoot that day, I 100% thought the exact same thing. I'm like, he's putting his thumb over the barrel. I don't know how I feel about this right now. My internal fucking sniper wants to go over there and say, Jeph, stop fucking doing that. But then on the other side of it, I'm thinking like, okay, the target is 175 yards away. We're shooting high angle. I don't know how much pressure he's putting on the barrel. And at the same time, the target is roughly a 5-inch diamond. So, 3 MOA target. There's a lot of room for error there. I'm just going to shut the fuck up and see what happens, right? Sometimes you just got to shut the fuck up and see what happens, right? Because we've all been told, like, don't touch the barrel. Don't touch the free floating barrel. You are going to disturb the harmonics. You're going to, you're going to fuck it all up. Well, clearly I just shut the hell up and let you shoot, and you hit, and hit 4 times in a row. So I think it comes back to like, can it affect you? Yes. If you sit there and death grip that barrel and apply so much pressure that you're bending it down, right? Or you're changing its point of aim. But if you're just wrapped over the barrel and not necessarily applying pressure to that specific thing, is it going to have a drastic effect? So I think sometimes as people, we might think we know something, but it's okay to sit back and just observe and see what happens, right? Because that's where the learning takes place, is like, I'm watching you and I'm like, he might miss, but let me see what happens. And then you hit, and I'm like, okay, well, clearly there's more factors in play here than what are realized. So I don't know. I did see the comment, and I'm like, we're hitting the target. So clearly, like, there's a perspective to
it. And to be fair, if I saw that, I may reach out and not necessarily roast somebody, but I think it was the Mandalorian I saw last night that said we do not speak about what we do not know. Yeah, if you look at the very, very end, you can see how I'm sitting, right? So I had to give up what I would perceive as an increased level of quote unquote accuracy of the rifle by lightly touching the top of the barrel with my thumb to increase stability by grabbing the forend and locking it into the bag and getting myself into a position where I could just stay on target because of, that angle was so steep, and where I'm on top of a pointy rock, right? I'm sitting cross-legged with one of my legs sitting over the edge. So there's context with everything that we, even when we're, ripping videos up, there's always context to them. And we say that for this one. Yeah. I mean, this is just, it's an internet troll more than anything else, but yeah, I actually went back and looked at it. I was like, what was I doing? But yeah, I mean, pressure matters and context matters. And for that one, I'm gripping the forend as hard as I can and just grabbing that bag as hard as I can. And that just put my thumb in a place where it's just touching the top of the barrel.
Yeah. And again, like, sometimes you just got to sit back and you got to watch and you got to say, let's see what happens. Similar thing with scopes, like, putting your hand on top of the scope or stuff like that. Like, can it affect your shot? And for a long time, I was like, no, there's no benefit, in my opinion. There's no benefit to pressing down on the scope other than you're kind of applying pressure downward on the center of the rifle, but you're not controlling the pivot point, right? You're just pressing down on the middle. The muzzle's still able to flip around, but there's no negative effect to pressing down on the scope. And then having a Marine who's up on a barricade and he's pinching the scope, and like every time he does a certain movement, he would hit, 1 mil low. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Or he would, hit 1 mil high or something weird. I forget what it was. He was 1 mil low. And what was happening is he would pinch the forend of the rifle. He would grab the bag, the forend, and he would also have his thumb jammed underneath the scope between the scope and the rail. And he was applying just enough pressure where he was flexing the scope up. So that was causing him to aim lower, even though he was putting crosshair on scope or on target. That pressure that he was applying in there, that bullet was hitting 1 mil low, sometimes even more than that. And it took a minute for us to figure that out. So it's all relative to how much pressure you apply, right, to these specific situations. So, oh, let's see here. Share screen. Okay, let's go with this guy right here. Oh, who's that?
Oh,
handsome man.
Sexy guy. Look where your thumb is. It's nowhere near the barrel. What are you doing?
I'm in a completely different situation here. So we're just going to play a video and see what happens. I haven't even watched this video. Is it playing?
Not on my end.
Come on. How does this always happen? How? Jeph, we're coming back. Coming back.
You're downloading the videos, so I don't know why.
I am downloading videos. I can't figure out why they just won't play. It's like it's got a temperament. Aha, I found it. Hold on. Let me try now. Oh, wait. That's you. Damn it. Wrong video, dude. My bad. Oh, I got it. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Okay, it is working. I don't know why Zoom has such a hard time with this.
I don't know. Am I supposed to see? Oh, I don't. Oh, there we go.
You got it?
Yep, I got it.
So here is me shooting from a rock. It's a weird rock. You can't really tell the position that I had to get into to take this shot, but I'm wedged between another boulder. The rifle's on top of a point. I've got one of the bipod legs down, and I'm just trying to create as much contact as I can with this rock because this position is horrible.
Yes.
Whenever you're ready. Here it is. And a miss. There's a hit.
There it is.
And you see, I'm looking at my position. I'm trying to like, how can I make this better? Because the first position, if you notice, I was kind of in this squatting position and I was trying to lean up against the boulder behind me. And then I had my forearm touching and I was pulling the bipod and I was trying to create this position out of fucking nothing because it was really hard to be in that position and aim down at that angle, because the farther you aim down off of a fixed position like that, the higher your body has to be. So if I got to be all the way up here to get the angle to look down, it just put me in a weird spot.
Yeah.
Like my trigger press was good, but that first shot, I couldn't get the stability that I needed. And
yeah, and it's like when the more people who don't shoot, and it's kind of what drives you crazy about even putting some of these videos up, is people who don't shoot high angle or who have never shot positional shooting before look at that and they say they don't know what they're talking about, but unless you've done it, you have no idea how difficult that is. You have no idea how like where's your elbow even go in that, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't have a big pillow to sit it on. You're just kind of, it's tough. Those angles are just tough to shoot. No matter how good you are, it just sucks sometimes, which is why we go out there and we try different positions.
I mean, that specific spot, like I said, you're shooting from a rock in front of you. You're in between a gap behind that rock. You're leaned up against another boulder. There's a boulder down on the ground that you're kind of like straddling and like, haji squatting on. And it was just weird, and like you got to find ways to make it work. But at the same time, that specific target, I think it was 100, like it was called 150 yards down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those 3-inch diamonds. So it's not like we're shooting giant ass pieces of steel here. Like the challenge is still there for a small ass target. So I don't know.
And I think I did the same thing from that position, except I think you tossed me your tripod and I just put it under my elbow or something. And pretty sure I missed it the first couple of times until I readjusted and changed my position, because that was a hard position to shoot from.
So like the math, when it comes to the math on high angle stuff, the math ain't hard. There's range finding binos that will compensate for you. There's cosine indicators. There's basic math that we teach, like the rule of 15. Like the math is fucking easy. Shooting up, shooting down. It's a simple concept to grasp. You know what the challenging part is? There you go. Cosine indicator. Yeah. The challenging part here, Jeph, is the positions are so much different, right? If you want to become a master at positional or tripod, start training on a flat range and then move your ass into the mountains and shoot up, shoot down, like change the angle of your target. And you will be in such a better place in terms of understanding how to get in some of these positions, because you're forcing yourself to do something that isn't that natural, right? Like I love mountain shooting just because of the challenge that it poses and some of the positions you can find yourself in. Like, how did I get here? Like shooting uphill is definitely one of those interesting situations where, how many people get to shoot uphill?
Yeah, not very many.
So
I don't get to shoot uphill very often at all.
So you put people in a position like at the old range where we had the field course that was all uphill. And these are some drastic angles. You're talking like 40 degree aiming up. And you watch some of the people like, oh, I don't know how to set my tripod up. I don't, like before you know it, people were like, I can't do this. I don't know what to do right now. And it's just another challenge to help you grow as a shooter. So if you get a chance.
And I would also say, like, you're not wrong. The math, once you know the math is pretty easy. But I think one of the things that has served for me pretty good, and I would assume I don't know, I'm not going to speak on it, but being of smaller stature and flexible has helped me a ton in being able to achieve positions that most guys typically wouldn't think to get into, to be able to shoot some of those spots. Because sometimes you just have to put your body weird, and you got to get your legs in weird spaces to get your elbow in a space where it's stable or comfortable. And sometimes bigger dudes just can't do it, or they don't train their bodies enough to get into those spots.
It's all that physical therapy and hip thrusters that you've been doing, dude.
It is. It's my elbow stuff.
So all of this stuff comes back, Jeph, like we don't practice for positions. We train to principles, and those principles will guide us through any situation, whether it be a mountain, an urban, a flat range, shooting from a tripod. If you stick to the principles, you will be successful, versus I've only ever done it this way and now I'm getting fucked because the mountain is not cooperating with me, So
Agreed.
Oh man. Well, I don't know how long we've been going. I know that we're trying to keep your episodes to 1 hour.
I don't know, but I can tell you that Melissa just opened the garage door and she didn't say anything. She just looked at me and then slowly closed the door behind her like a supervillain. So
that's our signal of like, you better get off that computer, boy, or you're not going to be around to test your survival skills.
Let me ask you this though, with just your fundamentals of who you are as a shooter, with having, is there a position that you'd be like, oh, I haven't trained that shooting position, I probably couldn't do that very well? Or would you think with just the fundamentals that you've taught yourself and you learn and and you teach, that is what would set you up for success no matter what position you'd be shooting, whether it's a helicopter or mountain range, up, down, car, post? Or would you think I need to train that specifically to excel at that?
I would say that based off my experience, I don't know if there's any positions now that I can say I haven't been in, because I've even been in a position where I'm laying down flat on my back. I've got my pack underneath my head and shoulders, and I'm on rifle resting on a tripod and I'm shooting up, but I'm laying down on my back. I mean, it's not the position that I wanted to be in. It was just somebody asked me if I could do it. I'm like, I don't know, let's fucking try it, you know? So I would say now I don't think there's a lot of positions or any positions that I haven't been in terms of general scheme. But even when I've been thrust into positions where it was unfamiliar or like, man, I never shot like this before, it's always come back to the principles of all I need to do is try to build bone structure or get my rear elbow supported or, you know, clamp down on the front end of the rifle. Like if I just follow the principles that I know, then you can solve any problem, right? It's kind of like, well, how do you solve this math problem? Do you know how to write numbers? Yes. Okay. Well, then you have the tools to do that, right? Now, if you didn't know what numbers were, then you can't solve the math problem because you don't know any of the pieces. But when you have the tools, when you have the answers, you just have to figure out how they plug in. That's it. Uh-oh. You're getting that.
Yep, that's our cue.
That is, she got to come on the camera though. Tell her to come on the camera. Say what's up.
No, she already went inside.
What?
Babe.
Come back.
No, you know, it's because of the baby's up.
Oh,
we have Friday happy hours that I need to attend to across the street with our neighbors, who will be involved in my prepper plans once the world ends.
Okay, final question. It's see 54 minutes on your clock back there. So we're going to try to knock this out in 120 seconds.
Okay.
Your neighbors across the street, no ill will towards them or anything like that. Like if they listen to this podcast, and it's just an honest question and take it however you want. Jeph, what is their level of preparedness?
0.
Ooh. Okay. So
no offense, great people. I'm working on that.
Working on it. Okay. We'll talk about it more later. That was a good answer. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. All right, brother.
All right, brother.
Good talking to you. Everybody, appreciate you guys listening. Have a great weekend. Everybody be safe out there. Make sure you go to maxordinate.com, get some of those free downloadable targets. Do the sniper golf. Post that shit up. Send us some feedback on them. I had a really good time shooting them, but I also did not get destroyed by those targets like some of my friends. So if you're getting destroyed by sniper golf, it means you just need to practice more. So until next time, Jeph, have a good prepper weekend with your neighbors, and I will talk to you later.
Yeah.